Welcome, everybody. Thank you for attending today. We will be doing finding primary sources online. Um, let's go ahead and we will start with what is a primary resource. So primary sources are eyewitness or firsthand accounts of people, places, events. Some examples, as you can see, are letters, diaries, and other documents in which people record their thoughts, experience, governmental agencies, records, so birth certificates, annual reports for businesses. Those are all primary sources. Photographs, audio, and video recordings of the events happening and the people surrounding them count as well. In some cases, published materials such as books and articles that are written at that time of the event occurring is also considered a primary source. So a book written during that time period is the primary source, but an article written, say, today about a historical event would be a secondary source. Some more examples down here. So to compare primary and secondary is if you have a World War I letter from a soldier is a primary source, but that secondary source could be a book on American Army in World War I. Same thing for a diary in the 1960s about an anti-war protester. That physical diary that person created is the primary source. And an article about anti-war protests at colleges written who knows how many years later is the secondary source. Again, I mentioned photographs. So some photographs of Alaskan glaciers compared to a thesis on glacier changes in Alaska. Those are differences between primary and secondary. So in the crazy times we currently have, how do we access these items online? I'm going to start by showcasing our digital collections that we have in Holt-Atherton Special Collections and Archives. And then from there, we will go and we will expand out to other places. The reason I'm starting with ours, besides that I'm very comfortable with it, is just to give you an idea of what you can expect from other digital collections. They're not all going to be exactly the same, but similar aspects are going to be in all of them. So once you go to other places, you will find that the digital collections or virtual museum or whatever it's going to be called, there's lots of names that I'll go over later. They're pretty much laid out the same way. There's sections broken out by topic or the collection as we have here. Sometimes it's the main topic divided by sub-collections that you can visit or access. I will be using the California Gold Rush and the Japanese American Internment for my examples today, just because I know that we have some, and then I know that those are materials that we can find plenty of out there on the internet. So let's go ahead and let's start by breaking down a record once you click on it. So if I go to Gold Rush Life, and if I just decide to choose this letter here from Augustine Hibbard to William Hibbard in 1868, let me go ahead and refresh this. Yeah. So this is a handwritten letter. If you go through it, there's the title, who wrote it, who received it, the typed out letter, the location that the letter was written in, the date of the letter originally, any other information about the letter, the original collection that it was from is here, the institution that it's from. So I am accessing this directly from Special Collections. So I know where I'm going, but sometimes if you're just doing a Google search and an item pops up, you might not necessarily know what repository that it's taking you to. So finding that information within the record's important. If you decide to use the item in a paper or a talk or whatever the purpose you're using it for, always remember to cite where you got the item from. So on here, it does have a recommended citation or in most repositories. Whenever you access an item, I'm going to say about 80% of the time there will be a link to cite the item, or as we have it here, an actual recommended citation so that you know how to cite it already. And then of course the item is available for you online that you can access. So this one, as I showed you, it has the completed transcription written out here. That is very helpful for Google searches, or if you are just doing a word search, you can see if this letter has a topic or a term that you're looking for. In some cases, though, let's go to another letter from the Hibbard collection in Gold Rush. As you can see, it instead of the transcription, it says transcription volunteered. So this item has not been transcribed. And if I go ahead and I select the letter and open it up, we can get a look at, and this is a very extreme handwritten letter. Paper must have been scarce at the time that he was writing this in 1851, because he wasn't wasting anything. He wrote one way and then he turned the paper on its side and he continued in another way. So remember, not everything is transcribed and searchable just because it's online. So whenever you're planning your research process, make sure that you plan to do some reading. That in some cases, when you put in a term or try to search for something, it's not going to pop up. So in this letter, if let's just say, for example, he talks about coming across a bear in the forest and you were looking for Gold Rush letters and bears in the forest, and you put that into your search, this letter would not come up whatsoever because it has not been transcribed. The letter that has been transcribed, hopefully, if you put in that, it would populate your results and you would be able to find it. So whenever you come around to finding your resources, just always plan ahead that you're going to have to take into consideration certain things such as reading a handwritten item. Whenever you're doing your searching, because you're looking for items online, maybe don't narrow it down too much, because the description of the item might not have enough keywords in it for you to find that item. So you might have to go more general with just your topic until you get to a collection, such as something on the Gold Rush. You're just looking for Gold Rush collections. And then once you find primary material, then you're going to narrow it down for like animal encounters during the Gold Rush. And then within those items, you can find the material that's going to work best for your paper or project or whatever you're looking for. So that was one for letters. In some cases, let's go to the Japanese American internment. It is only going to be maybe a photograph that you find as a primary resource. And let's go ahead and just click on this one. Sometimes you're going to find items that are very detailed, that explain what's going on quite a bit. In others, such as this, all it says is one man, and it's number 22. So we have a lot of photographs in this collection that don't even tell you who the person is. The only thing that you're getting is that this is from a Japanese American internment collection, and that the location was at the Aurora Relocation Center. That's pretty much all you're getting for this collection. So again, I just want you to be aware when you're looking for these primary resources, you might have an idea of, like, I want this one primary resource that really just makes my thesis statement, when that might not necessarily be the case. Of course, besides letters and photographs, sometimes it's memorabilia or diaries, or in the case of the Cook collection, there are actual autobiographies, graduation speeches. There's even assignments that the internees did when they were at this internment camp or relocation center, several words for it. And once again, there's something that's handwritten. Luckily, this has also been transcribed, so it's going to be word searchable in Google, so people will be able to find it. That is very important, and I just want to really drive it home that be aware that not everything that is has been scanned and digitized, even if it's an image with words on it, the actual words may not be transcribed and searchable from an item. Okay, going back to primary sources. What I'm showing you here, I will, at the very end, I will post in the chat the web link for it. This is the subject guide that the library has created for special collections, archives, and primary sources. And anyone can access it anywhere. So if at any time you think you need to take notes or you're going to forget what I've said, don't worry about it. Most of the stuff that I go over can be found in the subject guide that you can refer to later. So sometimes we talked about secondary sources. You can find a primary resource in that secondary source. The best way to use secondary sources is to go to their bibliography or works cited pages and find the resources that they used and see if you can backtrack and find them yourself. So you're not necessarily using the information in the secondary source that you find, but you're going to their resources that they found. Every once or occasionally, you can also find photographs or the quotations that they've taken from a letter or diary. Those little snippets are considered primary resources within a secondary source, but usually it's just a snippet or a section of that primary resource. So you may not necessarily be able to use it for your paper, depending on the requirements that you have for that.
Can I ask a question while we're here?
Sure.
So how many of these, I assume these resources are open to anyone, anywhere in the United States for free that are in our library?
Yes, our library. I will be going over other people's libraries and if that is the case or not, but ours are available for everybody in the community or who has the address to it. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so is that typical? So if students said, "Oh, I found something at the University of," is it typical that they're usually accessible online?
So it is, if there is a digital collection online, then yes, usually all the material within that digital collection is available. But other places just like us. So we have over 400 individual manuscript collections, one of a kind material that we keep here in the archives. Only a small section has been digitized and is available online. So it is, you're going to come across something that you find in a finding aid or that you see a reference to that you're like, oh, I want to get to that item. And it could be that they only have the physical, you can only see it in person because it has not been digitized yet. But usually if something's part of a digital collection, it's just freely available to view, maybe not to use. Usually for student papers, if you're doing this for a student paper, you can put something in and just cite it and you're good. Now, if you are at the level where you're going to be publishing a manuscript, publishing a book, or even publishing something online in a blog or an online article, then there are other steps to where you may need to receive permission to publish from wherever you're getting this material from. Okay. So let me get back. All right. So yes, you can find primary and secondary sources, but the most useful part of secondary sources is to use the reference page and to see where they got their information from. Another, before I get into other databases or finding things online, our library subscribes to several newspaper databases. And over here, you can see a list of some of them. Some of them are just freely available for anyone. So the California Digital Newspaper Collection is one of those that you do not need to authenticate for. It is just freely available to search. Since it's California, I'm going to go ahead and do Gold Rush. I'm not going to do any searches specifically for the databases. I want you to see that they have other tools that can be helpful for you. So if you go browse by date, you can select the year that you're interested in. So I can go to 1848, 1849. If I'm not looking for anything specific, if I just want to get a feel of what life was like in California during that year, let's go ahead and let's go to summer. We'll go to July, and I'm just going to click on the 12th, and only one issue is currently available for that date, and it shows it to me down here, so I can click on that, and then it brings it up in its entirety eventually. So here is that entire newspaper issue for that date and time. I can go through and look. If I click on a specific article, it will over to the left, it'll bring up the text and it'll bring up the transcription. So I want you to be aware, just because these items are typed and you think that they can, and that the transcription over here, it's not necessarily always 100% correct. So a computer program does this, and let's go ahead and zoom in. For the text, especially on old newspapers, sometimes it's not the clearest. So sometimes letters run together or there's ink splotches, so it makes it harder for the system to make out each individual letter. So sometimes it'll be like, oh, I think it's this. And if you scroll through this one, it looks like it's pretty good. But every once in a while, you'll come to a section in certain transcriptions for newspapers where it's a whole bunch of symbols or dashes or whatever. So that's the computer trying to read the lettering. So again, whenever you're doing searches, just be aware that you might have to read the article yourself or check the article yourself just to make sure that the transcription got it right. Let's go ahead. Another one, so the New York Times historical. This one is a good one to use because it covers the nation. It's been around so long. It is not freely available. If you are affiliated with Pacific, you will have to, and you're off campus, you will have to authenticate to sign in to use it. Again, I'm not going to do a search. So before I searched for gold rush, I searched the time period that I knew the gold rush was happening in just to see what was going on. If you are researching a specific event and you know the exact date that it happened, you can go straight to that date and see what the newspaper was saying about it. I wouldn't go to the day of, I would go to the day after, because most of the time events happen and there's not in the past, there wasn't news coverage immediately in the newspaper that day. Newspapers go out in the morning, so all of the news would be in the following day. So over here where it says publication date, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select a specific date range. And as you can see, there's lots of choices where you can do on this date, after this date, before this date, a date range to date range. I could just go to specifically the one I want. If I didn't want to like do 2 days after, I can specifically go to December 8th, 1941. I don't have to put anything in my searches, or you don't have to, but then you get some weird, the results that pop up are usually like the advertisements first. I don't know why. So if I do know that I'm looking specifically for Pearl Harbor, I can plug that in, hit search, and then how it shows the results in this database is that it breaks it down into each article that was available during that issue. I kind of want to look at the whole thing and grab the full and browse the full paper. So if I just click on one of them, it'll bring up just that article. But over here to the side, there is the browse this issue. And if I click that, oh, let me go back. I want to see page 1 is what I want to look at. And there is the whole issue. I'm on page 1 and I can go all the way up to page 44 of the December 8th, 1941 edition of the New York Times. If you see an article that you are interested in, of course, you can click on it. It'll take you just to that article. This database is great because you can email this article to yourself. There's the cite button that I was talking about that different places have to make it easy for you. You can print it, make it into a PDF to save for yourself. It even puts the information up here at the very top whenever you're looking at just one page of all the pertinent citation information that you would need. So newspapers can be very helpful. The New York Times historic database is a great example of the best features. Not all of the databases that offer newspapers are going to be this nicely laid out and user friendly. This is I think the most user friendly one that I have used, but it is a good place to go to be able to access information, especially if you're doing a specific event. And especially if it's an event that had national news coverage. If it's something that happened in a specific town, then you're going to want to try to find that newspaper for that area. A good place to look at that is Chronicling America, which is through the Library of Congress, and you can pick a certain state, do certain words, or you can just click to here, pick the state you want, and it'll give you a list of newspapers that have been digitized, and it'll tell you what years have been digitized, if they're available or not, and if you can go through them. So this page just offers so much just go straight to it information, where you don't have to do a whole bunch of online searching to try to find something. It's very direct. So newspapers, um, going on to databases, there's even a selection of databases, and all these databases are freely available. You don't have to authenticate or subscribe to any of them. They just have primary sources that have been digitized and that are available online. Let's go ahead and check out Calisphere. So this is through the University of California, but it is not only collections at the University of California, it is collections from all over California. Even our material, it can be found here. You can do searching here if you know what you're looking for. If you're still trying to work on a topic and you just want to browse and see what kind of primary resources are out there, you can go to their exhibit section. And then they have various collections arranged. As I said, comparing it to ours, it's similar in that it's by collections or subjects, and they're all laid out for you. So if we keep scrolling, we will get to World War II, where if we click on that, there is a section where it says Japanese American internment. If I keep going, further down, there's a whole just Japanese American relocation digital collection. So it's called JARDA, where you can go to digital primary resources for people, places, everyday life, personal experiences, and there's just so much. So if I just clicked on everyday life, there's photographs, there's documents, there's a vast variety of material just on this collection that you're able to access. So that's the good thing about going to various databases, is that they will have a collection of that covers a wide range of topics for your primary for finding primary material. Okay, so let's say that you've gone through the newspapers, you've went to specific primary source databases, and you still weren't finding what you wanted to find, and or maybe you prefer just to start with Google. Some people do. So let's go ahead and let's just go with a Google search. Start here. So let's just stick with Japanese American internment. I'm just going to go ahead and search. Lots of stuff pop up first. You have stuff from history.com, from Wikipedia. You shouldn't quote or cite Wikipedia, but it is a good tool to use. It'll give you a good idea on the background of your topic, so you can find better keyword searching, and you can also so Japanese American internment is such a large topic that you can narrow it down where you just wanted to look at children under 12, their experience in Japanese American internment. If you read through the history, it'll give you an idea of all of the different aspects of it, and you can narrow down on the one that speaks to you. What I like about Wikipedia, though, is if you go all the way to the bottom, there's all of these further reading, the references that were used in the article, and then these external links. And if you look at some of the links, it's lessons plans and photographs at U.S. Library of Congress, JapaneseRelocation.org. It's the records index. If you keep going to other sources, they actually have pictorial works, 2 letters. These ones are from the Bancroft Library. So you can see that these other sources are reliable sources. So you're not citing Wikipedia, but you're using it like you would a secondary source to help you find those primary sources. And it's nice about Wikipedia because there's so many links that it takes you to the online version of these primary sources. So let's just look at these letters from the Bancroft Library. If I click on it, let's see if it's actually a digitized item or if they're just referencing one of their analog in-person items. So the other thing to be aware of is whenever you're in Wikipedia, some of those links, so that they stay current, people have actually gone to the Wayback Machine and captured that link so that it's a permanent one, because links change all the time. So this way, what they're referencing is always there. And of course, you can still go to the collection through here. The only thing is it's not showing up the digital items, so you can't actually see it. But in some cases, going to the collection, well, in some cases it takes you to a dead end. In other cases, it might not show the actual image. It might just show the transcription, and then you can just use it that way. So this one, the image is there, slowly loading. No? Well, the other thing you can do now is, since we've clicked on a lot of links and it's taking us to dead ends because they use the Wayback Machine to save the site where they got the reference from, is you can just go to the Bancroft Library and search for this person's name and find the item there yourself. It's always nicer when it's just a one click and it takes you right to it, but every once in a while you have to do the research and do a little bit of digging yourself. So Wikipedia, great place to get other resources to find your primary material. More Google searching. Let's go ahead and switch it up. So whenever you're trying to find an actual repository or digital collection, you can add to the end of it. Let's go back to Gold Rush. At the end of that, you can go ahead and you can add digital collection, digital archives, special collections, online museum, online exhibit. All of those terms you add to the end of your search to give you better results to narrowing down to finding primary sources online. So if I just go digital collection and do a search, the first ones that pop up, I have Library of Congress information. I have a California Gold Rush collection. And so you're like, oh, okay, this might work for me. Sometimes they're not very friendly and they look like that they were put up in 1995. So let's see if we click on this images. It does bring us to a better page. So you have access to that item every once in a while. Let's see this one. There is no digital collection. It is just telling you that, yes, the Library of Congress has a California Gold Rush collection, and this is the summary, different locations that it talks about, the different subject headings that it uses. And then it says that there are more collections like this, which you can click through and perhaps you'll get to one that's a digital collection. But not necessarily everything you search for when you add digital collections is actually going to bring up something that is a digital collection. Something that you can add to kind of enhance your search is you add site, no spaces, dot, and then you can do edu, you can do .gov, or you can do .org, and these cut out all of the .coms. So when I put in this .edu, it is only bringing, got rid of it. is only bringing back results that have .edu in them. There will be no .coms, no .orgs, no .govs. It's only .edu. And if you go to the fourth one, it actually has the Gold Rush Life from our collections listed. But again, these are .edu. Those are school sites. So a lot of archives like us, that's what their digital repositories are going to end in anyway. So if we put in digital and your topic and then .site.edu, you're more likely to get the kind of results that you're hoping for with the primary material. This one takes you straight to, it looks like an item in a collection. So that's the other thing. You might not necessarily be going to how we went to the Gold Rush collection and there's a whole bunch of letters. Sometimes it's just taking you to a specific item. And then from there, you can try to backtrack following the web address to see if you can get to the main collection to look at all of their items for that topic. Let's make sure. Okay. Not only can you just use the ends like I was doing with the .edu, but you can also put in a whole site. So archive.org is a great site where they have scanned old books, old papers. They've made them available online, and they even have audio and video. I'm not going to show this whole thing, but I wanted to give you an example of that for primary sources, you don't have to just depend on photos and journals and paper items. That sometimes you can use audio and video material as your primary source as well. So let's just listen to the first little bit of this video that was created in 1942. Skip ahead so you can actually see some people.
Forces should try to invade our shores. Military authorities therefore determined that all of them, citizens and aliens alike, would have to move.
So this is an item of definitely primary resource. It was created during the time. It just happens to be a video. So don't restrict yourself to only looking for paper-based documents or paper-based materials, because there's so much more out there that is considered a primary resource. If you go to museum online exhibits, actual artifacts, those types of items, those are also primary resources. Just because you can't really read anything from it, or there isn't an explanation with it, it's like you can interpret those museum type quality pieces yourself. You can add them to your story. You can put them into your theses or paper or article, even though they're objects and not really paper based. And when I say objects, I mean like you could come across a spear from another country in a different time period. If it works with your thesis, that is your primary source. Let's go ahead and close that one. So the subjects that I searched today covered areas that there's a lot of material. So I did, Japanese American internment, there's plenty out there. Gold Rush, there is plenty out there for me to be able to find lots of examples of primary resources for. But in some cases, the topic you choose might not be well covered. You might decide to pick something from a very specific area that there is a collection, but none of the material from a collection has been digitized for it. That makes it a lot harder for you to be able to use it, especially during this time. So let me switch page. So this is a mock-up letter I have created. If you're a history major, let's say, and you're doing your capstone, let's say, for you to reach out to people. So let's see. Okay, so you're having difficulty finding material that's been digitized on your topic. If you begin your research early enough, you can contact various repositories and ask them to scan material if you are unable to visit in person. So here's the example if you're going to contact an archivist. Hello, you introduce yourself, tell them what your topic is. If you are able to visit in person, tell them that you would like to make an appointment. But for right now, to continue to get things online or through virtual means, you can inquire about getting access to something. In some cases, different repositories may have the items already scanned and digitized. They just haven't been put up or made available online yet. So you want to ask about how you can get access to something. It's always good if you've already researched a specific repository or a specific collection. If you've gone to their finding aid, a finding aid is an inventory of a collection. So let's say you've come across a finding aid online and you're like, this lists an item that is perfect for whatever I'm working on. I want to see about getting access to this item. This is where you would reach out to whoever holds that item and ask them about access. So you can list specific items. If you, on the finding aid, you can put exactly, hey, it's from this collection, from this box. Being well prepared makes them, I'm going to say, gives the impression to the archivist that yes, you are a serious researcher and you're serious about getting this material. If you can ask if they're open for research. In my case, so here we are currently working from home, but I do come in to help with researchers' request frequently. So they might have the same thing going on. You might get the response that I'm sorry, you're going to have to wait until campus, library, museum, wherever they're at, opens up again in who knows when. So you might not be able to access the material that you're hoping to. Of course, you say thank you for your time. I put some other tips in there. Just if you have an email address, if you're sending it from your school address or your professional email address, it just comes across as being more professional instead of just using your regular, at yahoo.com email. So just remember that.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Is that a reasonable request to make under these circumstances? I mean, like, if someone wrote you very politely right now, would you actually scan a 10-page
Oh
document
yeah,
for
I
them?
have.
You could do that. Okay,
I
good.
definitely have. Yeah.
I
And
wouldn't have guessed it was even possible to do, but great.
oh yeah, yeah. So just to go off on that, also be aware though that if you reach out to certain places, like for here, if it's like 1 or 2 pages, I'm just like, oh yeah, here, I know you would come in if you could. I'll just scan these 2 pages and send it to you. If it's somebody asking for the complete, I'm trying to think, the complete yearbook from one of the Japanese American internment camps that we have not digitized yet, and they would like it copied and sent to them, then there may be fees attached to that, however much per page or sending or also how much time the archivist has to spend scanning it. So there may be fees for those types of services. But it never hurts to just ask and reach out. I mean, you don't know for sure unless you check. I know there are various places working from home. I've talked to the San Joaquin County Historical Society. I know that they're not open, but that they are working from home. And so sometimes we can answer questions. And like I said, sometimes things have been scanned maybe for in-house reasons to where it's like, oh yeah, that just so happens to have been scanned. Here you go. Or I can scan that for you. I might not be able to get to it right away. It might take a week or so, and it might cost, 20 cents a page or whatever. Every repository is different. So just keep those things in mind whenever you're planning to find your primary resources. If
Are
it's
interlibrary loans generally available now also, or no?
Yes, we're doing curbside. So actually any books in the library, you can come and pick up as well. You'd go on the catalog, put it on hold. And then when it's ready, you can come in and pick it up. Also interlibrary loans, so that is requesting a book from another library. Primary sources, not so much. But if it's a book written in a newer time period, if it's a newer event that you're working on, it could be considered a primary source. But again, you can still get secondary sources and find primary sources within them, and definitely pick them up during our time now. Let's see. Okay. So for this letter, the reason I give you an example, you guys may be thinking, I know how to write an email, I can reach out to somebody. I put it in this frame because I can't tell you how many times I've had people reach out and their question or how they form their request is not helpful. For example, someone saying, can you send all the information you have on the university? I haven't had that one, but I've had one similar. Well, it's like, we have hundreds of boxes of material on the university. Can you narrow it down? Them asking for specific information on maybe the Let Us Vote campaign at the university in the 1960s makes the exchange much smoother. It's just, when the archivist knows that you know what you're talking about and that you specifically want something, especially if you tell them what your topic's on. Now, you can ask for specific items and then go on to say that your general topic is about women in the gold rush or about children in Japanese American internment, and that's why you think that this item will work for you. The archivist is like, oh, you know what? I know of these other 3 things that actually work for your topic as well. So getting the archivist invested in your topic can be a time saver for you, because if you get them invested or if you get them interested, then they're going to want to help you, and they're going to be like, oh, how about this and that, and give you all kinds of things that maybe you didn't know to look for or that you just hadn't found yet. Yeah. And it's fine to contact me or one of the other librarians here, or if if you're currently also using maybe a library somewhere else, to reach out to a librarian there to help figure out your topic and to narrow down your thesis. Don't think that you have to have everything ready to go, that you know what you're going to write about to contact one of us, because we're happy to help you sort through that. It's whenever you're that you finalize your topic and that you need to gather your resources that you would use this letter. Whenever you're reaching out to places outside of us or outside of your local library archives, that you want to be more prepared, because then it's time saving. It's efficient. But like I said, your local archivist or librarian, so me or any of the other librarians here at Pacific, are more than happy to help you work through your thesis, your professor as well, to kind of get you to figure out how you want to narrow it down, what kind of resources you need, and then you use the letter to reach out to people when you're ready for that. Okay, so I will be sharing, like I said, I'll share this file, and I will share the link to the subject guide, so you can access all of those nice links that we have if you haven't already figured out how to get there yourselves. And then the rest of the time today, I have put aside for questions. If anyone has any questions, if you have something specific about your topic, that's fine too. If you just have something that's general that you think will cover, get you going, I mean, whatever questions you have, I'm more than happy to help with. So go ahead. If you have a question, you can put it in the chat or just unmute yourself and we can go from there.
Yeah, I actually did have some questions, but you answered them all during the presentation. So that's why I'm trying to think of what else I can ask you, because all of the issues you were bringing up, all the stuff, I'm like, this is exactly what I came for to figure out.
You know what? That makes me very happy, and I'm so glad that you were able to get the answers that you were looking for. Let me go ahead.
Can I ask a question? Are there databases of primary sources that we subscribe to? I mean, I know of Adam Matthew, which has stuff that's you know, they have a whole food archive basically. But are there privately owned databases that we can, that the university has to pay for, that we can access?
Yes. Let me just there. Let me share my screen again. Share. Okay. So from the university's new homepage, to now get to the library, you click the little lines of on the top right, you go to library. If we go over here to the big yellow box, it says articles and databases. If you click on that, it brings you to our A to Z list of all the databases the library subscribes to, and then some free ones that we think are important enough to include. If you go to type of database, there's a subject line that says primary sources. If you click on that, it'll bring up the 9 databases that have to do specifically with primary sources. So most of them are going to be the newspaper collections that we subscribe to. So America's Historical Newspapers is a subscription. The California digital newspapers, it's free. Excuse me, Calisphere is free. Chronicling America is free. Early American Newspapers is a subscription. The New York Times is a subscription. Online Archive of California, that's to find finding aids. That's freely available for anyone. Rock's Back Pages, that's subscription. And Wall Street Journal is subscription as well. So JSTOR, let me go to that. So JSTOR, JSTOR Open Access eBooks, and JSTOR Open Community Collection. That's the one. Currently, I think that theirs is freely available, but these are different database collections that we have. Like I said, we do subscribe, which is most of the newspaper ones, or they're just freely available. Over here, let me share this.
Thank you.
Yeah. And there, so I've included the letter, hopefully correctly, as a file, so you can download it, so you can just copy and paste that and rework it as you need to. And then I've also included the link to get to the subject guide for primary sources. So like I said, if you saw a database on that page that's going to work for you, of course, you could just Google it if you remember your name, but you know, in a month when you're actually bearing down to start finding your resources, you're like, wait, what was that database that she talked about? Now you have a link, you just have to save that and you can go to it. Did anyone have any other questions or contributions, anything? Okay. I will go ahead and I'm going to put my email address. And I think the link that you use to access this has my email on it as well. Yeah, ngrady@pacific.edu. So if anyone has any questions that I can help answer about primary sources or digital archives, I'm more than happy to. And again, once all this settles in and people actually get into the research, I think that's when they have a lot of questions, because they're like, I tried to find this. Can you give me any tips? Help me out. And I'm more than happy to do that as well. And if there are no other questions, then thank you everybody for coming.
Thank you.
This will be recorded so people can access it later.
How long do you think it will take to be uploaded? Because our class normally meets at 3:30, so I'm going to ask the other 2 people to just watch it now. You know that.
Yeah, Michelle.
So it takes a little while for the video to process when I stop the recording, and then I have to upload it. So anywhere from like 20 minutes to 40 minutes, depending on how long it takes the video to process. Yeah.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Okay,
Sure.
and it'll be on the same Zoom page or on Canvas. Where will that be?
Yeah,
We'll find the link.
The link I sent you was to the was part of all of the scholarly common library workshops that we're going to be having, and it's posted there. And actually, all of the past talks, if there's something you think your students might find of use, you can have them
Great,
watch them
great.
as well.
Thank you so much, folks.
Yeah, no problem. Everyone have a really good day, and yeah, that's it.